All right. So today we're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and their busy summer coming up this year in 2019. Now, in terms of pending contracts, they have plenty. Um, Nick Patan, Brendan Lemieux, Ben Chiarot, Andrew Kopp, Tyler Myers, Laurent Brossoit, Brandon Tanev, Jacob Trouba, Patrik Laine, and Kyle Connor. And they have $23 million in cap space for next season. So, out of those guys, only three of them are unrestricted free agents, but one of them might be pretty big. So, to start a quick rundown. So, Nick Patan has 2 points in 13 games played. He's an RFA. I don't know. I don't expect him. He might be a guy that they just say, hey, you know what, it's not working out. See you later. Or if the salary cap is that tight, they say, hey, you know what, we'll just keep him. Just keep him, and he's a low cap hit. Brendan Lemieux, 11 points in 43 games played. Now, I think there's more to Brendan Lemieux than Nick Patan at this point. Nick Patan was brought in. He was actually a pretty highly regarded guy when he first came in. Same thing with Brendan Lemieux is starting to fall into that. He's a power forward, and he's a guy maybe you look at as like he's their grinder guy, that gritty guy that they have in that bottom six. In a deep playoff run, he's the guy that kind of keeps things in check, and he also is an RFA. So our first UFA on the list, so Ben Chiarot, an older guy. He's a defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets. 13 points in 55 games, which is not too bad. Obviously, he's spent some time in Ottawa, and he went to Winnipeg. There's a depth guy. We'll see what happens. I think there's a guy, another veteran, that's probably more meaningful in the room before and after games than what his complete product is on the ice, and that sometimes can be more valuable, especially when you go into the playoffs and for late series games, Game 6 and Game 7s. A guy like Ben Chiarot could be pretty important. Andrew Kopp, 16 points in 46 games, and he's an RFA. Now, there's a guy that I'm pretty sure he's playing third or fourth line center in Winnipeg, and again, he's another guy that I like this guy, and the ceiling wasn't overly high on him, but this is a weak season for him. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, it would be interesting if they made a trade for a center to come in and kind of take his spot, or it would definitely limit his minutes. Even if he was on the fourth line already, it would hurt his minutes. I'm pretty sure Jack Roslovic, him and Andrew Kopp are the third and fourth line centers for this team. Don't quote me on that. Moving on, so Tyler Myers, 21 points in 57 games played. He's a UFA, and this is probably the bigger guy that's available in terms of unrestricted free agency. And the way Winnipeg is this year, you have to keep him and just bite the bullet. He's one of those guys that maybe isn't, nobody's talking about getting traded, and I don't think he will. I really don't think there's any interest. They'd rather let him go in free agency after winning a Stanley Cup or going to the Western Conference Finals. So Tyler Myers is a guy to look at, and again, he's another guy. He's getting older, but I think the problem with him at this point is his foot speed is starting to become very visible watching him play. So it's something to keep an eye on. He was in that trade a few years back when they made that trade Tyler Myers with Buffalo for Evander Kane and a couple other pieces. And so that's it for Tyler Myers. Now, Laurent Brossoit, goaltender. Probably one of the better feel-good stories for the NHL in terms of goaltending especially. Up there with Robin Lehner and Carter Hart and things like that. He has played really well this year. A .931 save percentage and a .241 goals against average. That is unbelievable. He's playing really well. And he doesn't have the games of a full, he has not played in Winnipeg the entire season, but you could say, oh, well, the defense is really good and things like that, but a .931 save percentage is extremely good. So, but he is an RFA, which helps, and that's another guy that they're going to have to sign this summer. Moving on, so the last UFA I have on here, Brandon Tanev, probably a little under the radar. He's got 24 points in 59 games played. Now, the thing about Brandon Tanev, what is he looking at in terms of a contract? And a 30-point guy, that could be $3 or $4 million possibly. He could make some money this summer. I don't think he's another guy. I don't think out of the three, Tanev, Myers, and Chiarot, I think Chiarot might be the only one that stays. And if they win a Stanley Cup, they don't keep any of them because the guys they have to sign here, their value is going to be out of the roof after winning a Stanley Cup. So, he'll probably go somewhere over the summer, possibly play third line, possibly top 6 minutes somewhere. We'll see how it goes for him. Now, Jacob Trouba. Now we're moving into the bigger guys here. Jacob Trouba, 31 points in 59 games played, RFA. It's been talked about for years that he would get traded. He's never got, he hasn't been traded. He asked for a trade a couple years back. I believe it was last year or 2 years ago. He's gonna get paid. 30-point defenseman, every other game. He's playing well, and this is another guy that you see $23 million in cap space this summer for Winnipeg, and that number is just gonna go quick. It's gonna go quick. All right, another big one. Patrik Laine, 36 points in 59 games. Oof. All right. So Laine, he's definitely had some struggles, and you know what? For him, when he was drafted, everybody was saying how much he's like Ovechkin and things like he's the next Ovechkin, and the way Ovechkin plays, he is one of my favorite players in the NHL. Besides the fact he's in, the Metropolitan Division where my Islanders play. He is one of my favorite players. And when they were comparing him to Laine to Ovechkin, and when he played those first couple games, in the season, I was amazed at Patrik Laine, and I was really excited to see what this kid could do, and it has not worked for him. But you wonder, because of the first 2 years, how good he was. What does that do now for this signing? I wonder if it becomes a bridge deal, where they look at a 4 or 5 year deal. They say, listen, obviously you have not played as well as we need you to, especially this year. We'll give you a 4 or 5 year deal, and see where it goes from there. And now Kyle Connor, 44 points in 59 games played. And this has not been as well documented as Laine's struggles. For the obvious reason that everybody thinks, Laine is the guy in Winnipeg. Kyle Connor's been one of the guys as well. He's been playing very well. And you wonder what the value is for a guy like Kyle Connor, and them all these guys being RFAs. You don't know, and it's going to be interesting how Chevy or Kevin Cheveldayoff handles this summer, because I don't know what they're going to do. We talk about Toronto all the time, how they're going to have a lot of issues. There might be more issues in Winnipeg than Toronto, but it's just that whole Toronto mecca. It gets talked about a lot, but anyway, that leaves room for Winnipeg to breathe and figure out what they need to do. But I have a lot of faith in Kevin Cheveldayoff. He's one of the better GMs. Now, the thing with Chevy is he does not talk. He does not make a lot of trades. So it makes you wonder: is he? He isn't. He doesn't want to make a lot of trades. The team was bad, and he was able to collect, and now he has to be able to manage what he's collected. So we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching, and like the video, subscribe, and give it a like. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting summer for Winnipeg, so we'll see what happens. And they won't be the only team that's worrying about the salary cap this year. There's a couple teams, so we'll see what happens. All right, see you later.